for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicola France, and I am part of Crossway's Catalyst team. I hope you're all doing well during this time and that you're staying busy. I know I personally have enjoyed spending some extra time with my family before I leave for college in the fall. I miss you all very, very much, and hopefully I'll get the chance to see you guys again sometime this summer. We still love the opportunity to connect with each other, so we encourage you to invite your friends to Large Group Online. Tonight we'll be playing a game, joining together through worship led by Katie and Allie Philo, and we'll be continuing our series, Free People. We're living in this constant state of actually feeling trapped, let alone feelings we get from regular life and challenges alone. But together we're exploring what it means to truly live free in Christ. Now we'll be going back to Jacob to get things started, and you'll see me again at the end of Large Group for some announcements. Thank you.
Well, hey everyone. I think we're all set. Everything's working, right? It's good to be back with you all. Double checked, I'm unmuted. So hopefully you can hear me. Like I've talked about, all of the buttons and tech needs that come along with this. But we were off last week. It was Mother's Day. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you all have been out enjoying the weather. And it is good to be back, even if it's online. For a large group, the opportunity just to hear from you all and connect is always really good. And so thanks to Nicole for opening for us. As she mentioned, we're going to play a quick game here. It's always just a fun way to connect. See and hear from you guys more in the comments, how you're doing, what you know about all of this random trivia that we have been going through. And anyways, it's just for fun, and then we will go into worship and then continue in our series, Free People. And so I hope you've got a comfortable place to sit. I hope you have your snacks or something to eat, and something to write on and write with, so you can be taking notes and kind of thinking through everything that we're talking about, so you can do the discussion guide later. As I almost knock over my whole setup here. So let's jump into it. Everything should be queued up, ready to go. Here we are. Awesome. All right. This is this is the game that I have for you all. So I gotta switch everything over here so I can actually see what is going on. Here we go. What is behind the mask? So I mean, it's not quarantine and coronavirus if we don't have more jokes and games about masks and all of that. So here we go. This game is like, I'm going to show you a picture, and it's multiple choice, so you're going to have to guess what's behind the mask, right? Because it's important to wear those right now. Anyways, but these are just pictures. We have no idea what'll happen here, how much you'll know. Really, it's mostly like pop culture. So if you are just out of tune with what is going on in the world with all of our celebrities, then you might struggle. I don't know. I thought about that. Who is that? Anna Meek. I hope that was one of these, but it's not. Okay, so we got to get going here. Let's see if I can do this. All right. Okay, first one. Here we go. I hope you guys are ready. Keep track of your own scores. Is this working? I think it's popping up. First one. My whole setup's different. It's harder to read. I'm also blind and I can't see anything. Remove the mask, and what kind of expression does Taylor have? A smile. B, frown. C, straight-faced. It's not there. But D, you don't even know who Taylor is, which it's fine if you do, fine if you don't. I guess this isn't really trivia, right? Like, it's total guessing on what it might be. So I bet some of you are playing like CSI right now, or like detective, right? You're trying to like read the eyes, see what's behind the mask. But we're gonna just go do it now. You've had a moment to answer, and it is C, straight-faced. Yeah, look at that. Just not really any expression there. Next one, pop star or actress. Who is the person behind this mask? Is it A, Katy Perry, or B, Zooey Deschanel? Deschanel. No, that's not Deschanel. Or C, you don't know who either of them are or don't care, which is fair. Anyways, is it A or B? You really have a 50-50 shot here. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. You've had a few seconds to answer. It is B, Zoe Deschanel. Am I saying that correct? Someone correct me. Deschanel. I don't know. That's true. She is a singer and an actor, right? But pop star, yeah. I guess Zoe's more known for her acting, though, right? Isn't she in that show that everybody? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Kevin. It's New Girl. Anyways, yeah, that one, I don't know. That one wasn't very good. Like, they don't really look that alike. And Katy Perry's hair changes, I think, like every couple of days or something. Anyways, all right, NBA fans out there who have neglected to answer any of these because you think you're above pop culture. Anyways, we've got an NBA one for you. Right? Remove the mask, and where will you find Steph Curry's mouth guard? Is it A, the side of his mouth, B, on his teeth, C, no mouth guard? Which is it, A, B, or C? Is he like the most notorious like NBA player for like having his mouth guard other places or like losing it or anything? I don't know. Anybody know? Yeah. Anyways, you've had a few seconds, A, B, or C. And this is one of those, though, like if you know Steph Curry or you like watch a lot of sports, you can probably make a really good educated guess. And it is A, side of his mouth. I don't know. I never really saw that like players, like when I was like growing up, right? Like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. Not that they never did it. Did they wear mouth guards then? When was that like required? I know nothing. Anyone else watching that documentary, The Last Dance? There's like people who love it and people who hate it. And anyways, I guess stuff to do in quarantine, huh? Let's keep moving on here. And man, the way I have this set up, everything's so small and like really far away, so it's hard to read. And I'm blind, so yes, I'm squinting. What type of piercing will you find under the mask? Is it A, lip, B, nose, or C, tongue? I'll give you a few seconds. Or is it D, none? Could be a trick question. You've got a few seconds to enter. It's A, B, or C. There's not a lot of thinking that goes into it, but it is B, nose. I don't know. Has anybody here gotten their, like, I guess any part of their nose pierced? Doesn't that hurt? Just feel like that would be uncomfortable. I would feel like I have like a booger just stuck all the time there. I don't know. I could be wrong. It's not for me. Not judging anybody who has one. Just not my preference. Anyways, moving on. Can anybody recognize this guy? Oh, I mean, this says his name right there anyways. But you probably don't even know who he is or what he was first famous for. So if you remove the mask and what is on the Rock's face? Bonus points if you know his real name. Is it A, a beard, B, clean, or C, goatee? Which is it? Few seconds to answer. Yeah, so does anybody actually know his real name without having to look it up? No cheating. Also, you're supposed to be keeping track of, doesn't count. Juliana, you misspelled it. Everybody's misspelling it. That's okay. I think James finally got it. I'm not really sure. What was he first, like, well known for, right? Because I saw Kevin say it's Maui behind the mask, right? And sure, like, he's known for some of his roles now, but, like, what was he? Okay. He did wrestling. I like that. Okay, anyways. But was he first known for being in the WWE or the WWF? It's more trivia there. Which isn't on this, so let's move on. See what you guys answered. Because it is C, a goatee, which is kind of like rare. Like, he doesn't usually have a goatee, I think. I don't really know. I don't pay that much attention. Anyways, let's Moving on quickly. What does Ed Sheeran have behind his mask? Is it A, lipstick, B, a clown nose, or C, a lollipop? What could it be? It's one of those three answers. Waiting for those answers to come in. It's one of the three. There's no other options. And behind the mask is B, a clown nose. Which, this could be photoshopped. It could be for some random, it looks weird, right? It looks like it's like a mugshot of him. So like, why would he be wearing this clown nose and posing for this? He doesn't look like he's enjoying it. There is that thing that like Walgreens used to do, the red nose for some sort of cause, or I don't really know. But anyways, moving on, here we go. Not a person. What is the emotion behind the mask of this emoji? Is it A, sad, B, indifferent, or C, happy? I think indifferent would be like it's just like the line across. Like if you're trying to decide. This one's a total guess, right? Like you can't even read the eyes. It could literally be anything. Anyways, you've had a few seconds to answer in. I'm going to tell you guys, I have like accidentally left myself muted so many times. I sort of have a like PTSD now for be like, am I muted? Am I not? Because I figured at this point you all have just given up on me and aren't going to let me talk as long as possible until I realize that I am muted and you're not even hearing anything I'm saying. Which, are you hearing anything I'm saying even if I'm unmuted? I don't know. But hopefully. So it's C, happy. Look at that. Kind of wrapping up here on a positive note. Ooh, we actually have a couple more. There's some animals in here. This is not it. But what is the color of the macaroon that is about to be unmasked? Is it A, pink, B, yellow, or C, blue? Is it macaroon or macaron? Are those two different things? What's a macaron? I don't know. I don't eat these. I don't even know if I like them. Baked goods expert, educate me here. See, there's a lot that like I'm learning through this too. Anyways, giving you guys a few seconds, struggling here. The answer is pink. This is a total wild guess. Like, how could anyone have known, right? Unless you know that like you would never make yellow or blue macaroons, because we're talking about macaroons, right? Macaroon, macaron. I don't really know. Moving on. Here you go. Wrapping up. Two more. Couple animals. What are you going to see on the mug of the pug? Now we're into Dr. Seuss questions. A, tongue out. B, smile. Or C, does that say snart? Snarl. Snarl. Man, I can't read. I am that blind. Anyways, here we go. Few seconds to get your answers in. Could be anything. Isn't there like a famous pug? What's his name? I want to say it's Doug, but I don't know. It's A, tongue out, which is practically like any dog all the time. I don't know if like pugs are necessarily known. They're known for like the tongue out, mouth open, heavy breathing, right? Like that's pugs. They're always like, I don't know. That's weird. Here we go, last one, and this fits nicely because I think the last trivia game we did, oh, that's going way back. Otis, yeah, he's not so famous anymore, but he was the famous pug. Otis and what was the cat's name? Isn't that what we're talking? Are we talking about the same thing? Maybe, yes, no, confirm in the comments. But here we go. What are you going to see on the mug of this llama? It's not as fun when you say mug of this llama. So, is it, but I don't know. Are you able to answer this from all of the llama trivia that you learned last 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? Is it A, pucker, B, teeth, C, smile? Which one is it? Giving you a few more seconds because I've drawn it out enough. It is B, teeth, which I kind of like looks photoshopped. Kind of, oh, I don't know why. And that one's kind of hard to tell too. Like, is it sort of a smile? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. Looks like he's kind of had a rough day. He's not one of those like fluffy llamas that everybody loves. Otis and it's Odie. Odie and Garfield. Milo and Otis. Thank you, Matt Paul. Look at that. Yeah. Odie is Garfield's dog. Milo and Otis. Milo's the cat. Although I do like Garfield. I don't know any other. Yeah, other famous pugs. And Garfield's dog, Odie, is not a pug. Sorry, I'm so fixated on that. I was not expecting Garfield. Anyways, how do I turn this title graphic thing off? There we go. Let's jump into the rest of our night. You can let me know how many you got right. How many were there? I got to count this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Usually 10. I should have known that ahead of time, huh? Let's go back to the main screen here. You can let me know. Anyways, yeah, we're back. About to go into worship. Tonight's message and everything. So yeah, let me know how you did. And that way you got to stay fresh, right? Doing all this trivia. So like when you go to winter retreat next year, you guys can compete in the trivia hour that they do, which like I wish we had at middle school winter retreat recorded that whole like trivia session. Like I honestly, that was a team effort, and I was impressed with just some of the like random knowledge that you guys like pulled out of like thin air and won it all. Won free donuts, right? What were they? Apple cider donuts or something like that. Whatever they were good. It was worth it. The trivia was fun. You all surprised me. That was good. Anyways, so tonight, yeah, we're going to do a little bit of worship together. As always, I encourage you, just during that time, it's to set aside distractions. You're not focusing on the people who are leading worship, but you know, they are helping to bring you into a place and a mindset of worshiping God, to be able to connect with Him, to worship Him. And so I'm thankful Ali Philo and Katie Philo have put together this worship for us. We're going to worship together, and then I'm going to be back to share our message, and then we'll hear from Nicole again at the end.
Hi guys, it's Allie, and I'm Katie, and we're really excited to be worshiping with you today. We're going to start off with a song called Yes I Will that we've sung at youth group before, so follow. I count on one thing, the same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. I count on one thing, the same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will praise your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. And nothing can stand against, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will.
All right, so let us jump into week 2 of Free People. And so, as we explore this topic in today's message, this first question I want to ask you is, have you ever done something just to try to make yourself look cool in front of other people? It's almost kind of like a little bit of a cheesy question to ask, right? Like, we wouldn't really want to admit that. That word, like, it doesn't have to be cool, it just could be for attention or for status. I'm confident everyone here could raise their hand for that. I've seen most of you try to do something just to look cool or whatever in front of others, like even at large group or on trips and retreats and everything. Like I've been around, enough for that. The truth is though, like I have been too. I've been guilty of that throughout my whole life. I think it's really part of growing up and learning to navigate kind of the social landscape that all of us are in and a part of, right? And we still see that today and through every day. Yes, social media does kind of play a big part in that, right? It seems like we're always talking about social media, right? It's like everything is brought back to that. It's like it's the worst. But it's not just social media, right? We want to be vigilant when we talk about kind of anything related to our spirituality because of how significant social media has become, and it can still be a platform that really like amplifies a lot of the things that we struggle with, right? And honestly, kind of like just what social media is built on is people using it for that kind of validation, right? I mean, it's kind of what TikTok is, and Instagram, and YouTube, and what Vine used to be, and pretty much any platform. But it's not just about that, right? It's not just about social media. It's not about just what we leave online. We do stuff all the time that even if it's with a small audience or like a group of people that we're with in person. For me, like I wasn't, well, social media, first of all, like wasn't prevalent. Like it was just kind of hitting the scene and becoming something. But even then, it wasn't quite what it is today. Even with like what YouTube is, right? YouTube didn't come around until I think I was like in high school. And so anyways, for me though, like seeking that kind of attention, approval, trying to be cool, doing something, in front of people just for them to like me, right? Like that was still something that I dealt with and that I wrestled with. I wasn't necessarily the class clown in school, but like I didn't actually like the spotlight or attention. Even if I like did something to get attention, it would kind of make me feel awkward or almost like embarrassed. Right? It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe like I just did that. But like I was still motivated to get people to like me for some reason. That I would want to make a joke or do something funny just to even get a few laughs, even with a small group of people or with my own friends. And I even felt most comfortable at church to kind of like just be more of myself, but even still getting caught up in doing something just because I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be accepted by that group. And a lot of those things, they don't have to be grand things, but like they could just be small things, right? That are tempting to do or for us to be because of wanting that status. Trying to look good in front of other people is normal. Because we all want to look good. We all want to present ourselves well. We don't want to be recognized. We do want to be recognized, right? We want that attention. We want to be recognized and feel like that we matter to someone. None of us hope to do something embarrassing in front of others, although I think a lot of us have or feel like we do that frequently. We don't set out to show the worst version of ourselves. We want to put our best face forward. And that really, all of it, everything we've talked about, can be called managing your image. Doing whatever you can do to make sure that the best parts of yourself are visible to others, and that your less likable parts are carefully hidden, right? The characteristics, attributes, social status, wealth, whatever that is, right? And as crazy and superficial as all of this might sound, I think we all can kind of understand it, right? Like, that we know that this is kind of a reality, that people deal with this. And we've all experienced it in some way, and everyone around us is thinking about how managing their image in some way. And in some ways, it feels like, at school or in large social settings, it's like 5% academics and 5% social life, and 90% of just trying not to look foolish in day-to-day life. This is true because it's what you're doing when, whatever age, right? Usually kind of middle school, sometimes into high school. Your mom's dropping you off, but you ask her to drop you off like 2 blocks away from school or wherever you're going, so that your friends don't see you with your like awkward family, and then in the old minivan, that they're driving. It's why the idea of leaving the house in the morning when you have like a bad hair day or a zit on your nose that makes you just want to like crawl into a hole. It's why there are certain people that we want to be seen with walking to class, or why we get more nervous playing football or performing in the school play in front of certain people, and why there's one class that we want to do really well in. It's all because we are constantly working to manage our image so that we look good in front of other people. And this isn't just a school issue, it's a people issue. Some of you might even tell me, like, well, I'm homeschooled, or like, I don't interact with a lot of people. Like, I have a small social circle, so like, that's not a problem. Well, it happens in friend groups, in co-ops, sports, theater, clubs, at church, and even at large group. And it's not just a teenager thing either. Like, that needs to be clear. It's a people problem, which means that adults are also guilty of this. People worry about their image still with what they wear and what kind of job they have and how much money they make and how nice of a house or yard they have, the car you drive, where you go for vacation, or later in life how successful your own kids are, and so on. And just because we all do this image managing to different extents doesn't mean that it isn't exhausting for any one of us, more so or less. Image management can become a full-time job when you become consumed by it. And no matter how good you are at it, it still always feels slightly out of reach. And usually at the end of the day, you just feel tired, kind of almost just like worn out, but like not just kind of like physically from the day, but emotionally. And that, by the way, is kind of why some of us might even like act weird at home, right? Where we're supposed to be able to kind of like let our guard down, but we end up being the kind of person that we really aren't. What happens is we've contained our real selves all day, trying to be someone or something else to other people and feel like, different people at home. And now you're just exhausted. On top of being exhausted, trying not to look dumb in front of other people is also really frustrating, because there's a lot in our lives that never actually works out the way that we want or think it will work. We all have that like one teacher, coach, or friend, or even a parent who, no matter what we do or how well we perform or how good our grades are or how good our accomplishments are, they're just aren't going to be proud of us in the way that we want them to be. We can't do enough or say enough to change that, and they'll just never really approve of us. And when you do feel like you are doing okay in the eyes of others, it never lasts as long as you want or think it will. One day you have it, and then the next day it's gone, which means you're starting all over again. And maybe you are getting straight A's, or you get the game ball, or you make first chair, or you get the lead role in the play, and it's all really satisfying and rewarding. Then you go to bed that night feeling like you are succeeding, that you're winning at life, and that everything is good. But you wake up the next day and it all starts over, and something might happen, right? You still kind of go through all of those worst case scenarios in your mind. Kind of the fears of like, what if your grades drop? You have one bad game, or you get hurt and you have to sit out, or you get kicked off the team, or someone else, outperforms you and you get bumped out of, first chair, or you lose the lead role to the understudy. Whatever that may be, that kind of uproots your status and, that image you have in front of other people. And honestly, it can just be depressing to think about. And so, why are we talking about this constant battle to manage how people see us? Because image management, the way people perceive us and see us and how they think about us, is slowly hurting us, each of us, in our own lives, day to day, and week after week, and month after month, and year after year. And here is kind of where we're going with this. Very few things will threaten your freedom like image management. It's the opposite of freedom. Freedom is the ability to act without restraint. When you're constantly working around the need for approval, you're not free. Your need for approval is controlling you. The need to manage your image is making you a slave. Now, last time, a couple weeks ago, we had talked about how Jesus wants us to be free people. It's the premise of this whole series that we're in. But what do we do if the fight for approval takes up our lives and keeps us from feeling anything but free? So a couple weeks ago as well, too, into the series, we started talking about the letter to the Galatians last time. This is a letter that the Apostle Paul wrote to a church that had already heard from Paul about the message of Jesus. When these other teachers came to the church to check in with the Galatians, they started teaching something different from what Paul had originally shared. Like, Paul had a pre-existing relationship with these people. He helped to plant this church, right? Paul's message was, Jesus saves. You're free from sin. Jesus has made the relationship between you and God right again. And these other teachers, they come in and they came back saying, you still have to keep all of these Jewish commands too, so that you can actually have that salvation and that freedom that Paul's been telling you about. Like, follow these other rules that we had before. And the reality is like, this made Paul very upset. Think to a time like when you were younger and you worked for a couple of hours or just all day trying to build something really cool, like a Lego tower or structure. And some of those like Lego sets are very like meticulous and like intricate and very tedious, right? Like all of the pieces and following all of the, the booklet and the steps and, to piece it together just right. You spend all day building it, and one of your siblings or even a friend comes along and just knocks it down and it shatters into hundreds, if not thousands of pieces, right? The anger that you feel seeing all of your hard work destroyed right in front of you. It's kind of like what's going on here with Paul and the Galatians, right? The anger that Paul had felt having someone come behind him, destroying his hard work. Except this scenario and situation with Paul is much worse, and it's much more important. Paul is working to share the truth of Jesus. Paul had poured out his heart into these people, and when these other teachers came around teaching them something that was nowhere near the true message of Jesus, Paul took it personally. That's why he's very clear in this letter in order to set the record straight with what is going on. And so we're going to go to Galatians chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, and I'm going to read this passage to you of what Paul is telling the Galatians. He says, I'm astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion and trying to pervert the gospel of Christ. And so these are really direct words from Paul, and like this is what Paul has to like say even a few verses later. Like, he's trying to make a very clear point here. In verse 10, he then says, obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant. Now, Paul is saying, I'm probably going to make you mad with what I have to say here, and I need to set the record straight, though. I'm not here for your approval. That's really saying something, because Paul had plenty of enemies. He was on the run for most of his life, or at least the life that we see through the story of the New Testament scriptures, from governments, from Jewish leaders who saw him as a traitor to Judaism, because he had decided to follow Jesus. But the church in Galatia should have been different. He had planted this church, as I had mentioned. He had planted this church and had a loving relationship with these people. They were on the same team, the same sides. They were partners in this. And Paul knew that they had heard something different about what following Jesus really meant. And he wasn't okay with it. He took a chance, potentially jeopardizing that relationship that he had with these people so that he could clear things up. Why? Because the message of Jesus was on the line. A message that says freedom from sin can happen without the burden of people having to make their relationship with God right through their behavior. Paul had to make a decision. Did he care more about managing what people thought of him, or did he want people to know without a doubt the real message of Jesus, a message of freedom and grace? And what was being preached, right? They were hearing a false message on one side. Paul wanted them to hear the truth. It was a decision between working for their approval and loyalty to him or the approval of God. Now, Paul spoke these words at the very beginning of the letter because he wanted to set the stage for the rest of the letter and everything that he had to tell them. He stated to them that he was not trying to win the approval of the people, but of God. If pleasing people was his goal, then he wouldn't follow Jesus. Paul was more concerned with what he thought was right by God than what people would say or think about him. And maybe all of this sounds kind of harsh, right? He wasn't trying to be a jerk just for the sake of it. Going after approval of God doesn't mean that you have permission to act in such a way that no one ever likes you. That wasn't what Paul was trying to do. Going after the approval of God doesn't mean losing the respect of others. In the next verse, Paul addressed the church in Galatia as brothers and sisters. He cares deeply about the relationship with them. Paul said that because he cares about the church and the people who made up the church and not just about what they thought of him. Paul knew to only care about the approval of men and women in Galatia was to make his own needs for approval more important than what they needed. And what they needed, though, was the gospel more than anything. They needed truth, right? Paul could have put his needs above them, but he didn't. What Paul is teaching us through this, right? There's a message in the scripture, in the message that he's communicating to them, but the way that he handles this is also a message in itself. It's saying that there's a difference between caring about something and being controlled by it. He cared about the people who made up the church. He cared about the influence that he had on their lives. He cared about having influence with them, but he was not controlled by the need for their approval. And that is an important distinction. That small difference is what kept him from being controlled by whether or not they actually approved of him. Because Paul knew that free people lived for God, not for the approval of others. Free people live for Jesus and not for themselves. Now, it's not always easy to do, and I understand that. I really do. It's not always easy to care what others think and not be controlled by their approval. But how do you know if that is a struggle for you? If you are kind of stuck in that state of seeking approval or really kind of being controlled by what other people think. Here's a couple questions that you can ask yourself, that you can think about, all right? And be honest here. I'm not asking anybody to answer in the chat or tell anybody else, but this is a self-examination, right? To be honest with yourself and with God. You can ask, are you willing to do things when people are around that you wouldn't do if you were alone or around people who truly admired and respected you, or that you admired and respected, right? Is what other people say to you or think about you, like a coach, a teacher, a group of friends, does that change how you feel and think about yourself, what they think and feel about you? Do you feel like you're living different lives depending on the group that you're with? Acting one way with a certain group and another with a different group and another with your family and another at church? You know, that's the questions of, is there a church version of you? Is there a school version or a home version? And if you can answer yes to any of these, then you are probably struggling with the approval of other people, right? And it doesn't have to be kind of like this, the way you act all of the time, but it can be little things even that you kind of find yourself doing. And maybe you didn't realize it at first, but you realize like, man, I'll act or behave or do something that I know is just isn't my normal self. Here's why this matters. You weren't made to be controlled by anything. Remember that Jesus wants us to be free people. And free people don't live with every action being controlled by how others see them. Now, here's what Paul was not saying, right? We need to make some clarifications here. He's not saying I'm seeking the approval of God, so it doesn't matter how I treat everyone else. That's not what he meant, and I think it's important for those of us who are Christians or followers of Jesus to think about that. Sometimes we can get just as obsessed with managing our Christian image that we can act like that we are better than other people. You may not always realize it, but that's not freedom either. That's still being controlled by your need to look a certain way. And before I finish, we're going to kind of shift to a little bit more of a, very kind of personal thing for a moment. Chances are that there's at least one relationship in your life where you care way more about your image and about that person's approval of you than you really should. A relationship where, if you were honest, that person has more control over you, your emotions, or your view of yourself than you'd like to admit. That's been true for me even at points in my life. It's probably true for all of us, and chances are they don't mean to have that influence on you or you even notice that they do that, right? But chances could also be that they thrive on it. They do know that they have the ability to strongly influence you and to make you think that what they want, make you think what they want because they care about their own status. They care about their own safety and their own feelings of power and authority and security. And making you feel and think differently about yourself gives them that control and that feeling of satisfaction, right? That they are themselves worth something. But the part of that problem is that you care so much about what they actually think. Maybe people have even noticed that about you, right? Maybe someone has said something to you before about how you change the way that you talk or act or even think around that person. And the question is what do you do about that? Whether it's intentional or unintentional, what do you do about that? A few chapters later in Galatians, Paul says this. Galatians chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. And Paul sums it up here. You need to worry about yourself, not in a selfish, greedy way. You're responsible for yourself, your thoughts, your actions. You don't want to be a background player in your own life. You don't have to let someone else's opinion drive your decisions. The responsibility for you lies with you. You don't need other people's approval because the God who made you already approves of you. He already loves you. Free people already live with that kind of mindset, caring about the approval of God and not others. And when you do that, you feel a lot freer. You are free from the control of others' opinions. You are free from the burden of trying to measure up. You are free to rest in what God has done for you and not to worry about trying to live up to any other kind of standard. And this is important. This is a part of the journey of discernment, right? Trying to understand, knowing what God is trying to teach you and understanding what He wants for your life. There's a difference between listening to people who have truly shown you love and respect and listening to people who just control you for the sake of approval and acceptance. And that can be hard to determine sometimes, but this is why the truth of Jesus matters more above all else. And we're going to continue to explore how and why our actions and behavior still matters as we explore what it means to live as free people with Jesus, right? This isn't just something to be like, well, this is a reason why I don't have to listen to my parents or I have to listen to my coach or my teachers. That is not the point here. The point is being free from control and embracing God's approval of you already, more so than anyone else's. Now, before you go, before we wrap up, we're going to hear from Nicole again. She's got a few announcements, and I'll be back at the very end just to kind of give you some direction and instructions. But as we finish here, the very last thing I want you to imagine how different your life would be if you didn't feel the pressure to manage your image all of the time just to get the approval of others. What would it look like if you started to live as though you believed what God has done for you is enough, and that no one can add or take away from that? How many hours would you get back? How much less stressed or less tired, less fake or less worried would you be? We spent 4 weeks talking about, faith in an anxious world, right? Understanding that our anxiety can be a tool that we can listen to, but that's still something that we don't want to take control of our lives. And that's what Jesus wants for you. Free people live for Jesus, not for themselves and not for others. I'm going to pray to close this time and then transition back to Nicole to share some announcements. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes, and join me in prayer? Father, we come before you now, just grateful for this time that we have together as a community. Even though we can't gather in person, and that week after week, it just seems like, will this end? And when will we get to really be with our friends again and kind of be back to normal life? Father, no matter the changes or the restraints that we are experiencing in this world, you are steady. You are unchanging. You are the constant in our lives. And I pray that each of us during these uncertain times and always will turn to you to feel grounded, to find strength and endurance, but to find hope and peace. And Father, to truly find freedom, because you have already granted us your approval, because you sent your Son Jesus to die on the cross for us. May we find our worth, our image, our purpose in that, and not the approval of others. I thank you for this time and this community and the opportunity for us to gather even in this way to learn, and I pray that we are able to take these things, to think about them, to pray about them, and to learn ways in which we can live more like your Son Jesus every day after this. I pray this in your Son's name. Amen.
Hey guys, so I have some announcements for you. First of all, large group online will be moved to 6:30 on Sundays rather than 4 o'clock. We will be having another large group on May 24th, and sadly, our last large group will be June 7th. So make sure to invite your friends to join us for our last few large groups of the semester. That is all the announcements I have for you. I miss you all very much, and I hope you have a great week.
All right. Thank you again to Nicole. Thank you to Allie and Katie just for helping to add so much more to Large Group Online. Thank you all for just being here and being a part of this and being in the comments. And even if you weren't in the comments, like, we care a lot that you're here and I'm part of this. I do look forward to the day that we get to be together in person. As Nicole mentioned, we only have a few large groups left. We'll be back on here next week. Text your friends, remind them the time has changed. I know there's not one perfect time, for all of us to connect online, but let's do our best to be diligent and to be invested in this community. We'll send out reminders and updates and everything. As always, the discussion guide for tonight's lesson is available online. There's a Linktree link that we've kind of shared and put out there. I'll try real quick to throw it into the comments after I'm finished here, but you can find it through Instagram on our website. You follow that link and it gives you kind of some different options to choose from, and one of those is the devotionals. And so you can go to week 2 of Free People in that folder. You can find that discussion guide, and I encourage you to to do that on your own. Journal your answers. And let that be an opportunity for you to silently, with God, work over those, to think about them, to pray about them. But reach out to friends, do a video chat, or do it with your family or your siblings, or later with your small group. So we encourage you to do that, continue that conversation of what we have talked about, and we'll continue the series Free People next week. It was great to connect with you guys. I'll leave the chat open for a little bit longer for any of you to chat. Ask questions, whatever that may be. I look forward to connecting with you next Sunday.